In today's video, I'll be replacing these front anti-roll bar drop links on this Audi A4. Hello and a very warm welcome to another repair video from Auto Night, where today we have the Audi A4 B7 1.8T S-Line car from 2005, and it's back here because it has a knocking noise from the front suspension over rough surfaces, and I believe this to be the anti-roll bar drop links, sway bar drop links if you're an American. I have some Lemforder components to swap these out with, which should hopefully cure the problem. I've been seeing a lot of this car lately. I replaced this near side front brake caliper, made a video about that. The car then came back to me and it still had a brake binding issue, and I needed to replace the offside front brake caliper. It was the same job, so I didn't make another video, as it's essentially the same thing just on a different side of the car. And just most recently I replaced the plastic coolant flange that lives down the back here, which was a successful repair. The coolant level has, I'm pleased to say, remained stable ever since. So it's back again today with some knocking from the front, which we believe are the front anti-roll bar drop links. These, on each side, join the suspension anti-roll bar to the actual suspension leg on each side. Very prone to wear, these bushes wear, and then you get movement within them and you get knocking. Should be a straightforward job, but I've said that before and things have turned out not to be. You can get seized bolts and so on a car this age. Let's crack on with it. And here is the drop link, so 2 bolts here and here. So firstly we undo this top bolt and also the lower. The lower bolt screws directly into the end of the actual anti-roll bar itself. There is a threaded section in there and it bolts straight into that. It is under a little bit of tension, so when you release the bolt, the anti-roll bar will go up slightly. This means that when it comes to refitting, we will need to possibly jack up this suspension leg to realign things. And it's now free. And just a moment to compare the two components. Obviously we have the new shiny one here and the old one. These are not terribly worn to the point where there's movement in them. However, you can see that this bush here, which is interestingly enough by design under an awful lot of load even when the vehicle's just sat there, has over time distorted the bush to the extent that that is permanently at an angle, at a slant, that bolt there, and you can see the difference when I drop that through there. That's central. And that no longer is. So time to refit the new parts. Today I'm using Lemforder, which I like. It is German. There we go, made in Germany. It's always a reassuring thing to see. And it does come with the 2 new bolts as well, as these bolts should always be replaced. And just to give you an overview of the actual anti-roll bar or sway bar, you can see the end there, and inside there is thread. And it's a good idea just to jack up the suspension on this side slightly, just to assist with the alignment of the bolts as we refit the new part. Doesn't need to be far. The lower bolt is refitted and left slightly loose. We get the alignment right with the jack in terms of getting the angle right so that this bolt can slide through, and then this can be done up through here. It's important that you get the angle right. You don't want to cross thread this bit because it's quite easy to do. But once you get the angle right, you'll know everything's okay, because it will do up quite easily. If you're having to force it, something's wrong. Never force it. And that's tight. And then we retighten the lower bolt into the anti-roll bar. And that's done. Simple. We now turn our attention to the other side. And we repeat the same process around this side and remove the two bolts once again. You can't get a socket on this lower bolt because there is an insufficient clearance. A ratchet spanner would probably be the easiest way to do this, but I don't have one with me right now. And the part's free. Now, unlike the other side, there is actually clear signs of this inner bush here having separated from the rubber. And again on this side. So this one is in worse shape than the other side was. But that's fine because we're changing it anyway. And again, the new part, it's just important to differentiate here. You can see that the one with a threaded piece is the top one, so that bolt passes through into the thread, whereas the one where the bolt passes freely through is at the bottom, where it goes into the anti-roll bar. And we tighten both those bolts, and that side is now done. And hopefully that will bring an end to the knocking. Not entirely sure there was enough play or movement in these to have caused the knocking that we're hearing. These Audis have an awful lot of suspension links, ball joints. This system came out on the B5 Audi A4 and Passat back in the 90s, and you've essentially got the two upper arms and the two lower arms and all the ball joints that goes with them. When that generation of Audi and Passat first came out, we did so many of these under warranty, because I was working for an Audi VW dealer at the time, and you used to actually get a kit, and it would come with every single arm on the suspension system at the front. And then we used to have to optiflex the car, full wheel alignment check and adjust. In fact, even these track rod ends, when these cars weren't that old, we used to have them in for service, and sometimes they'd be split and just full of brown water and have really serious amounts of play in them. So when this system first came out, it wasn't actually that good, but it has got better over the years. Whether it's just improvements to component quality, they seem to have got it right now, but they do wear over time, obviously, they don't last forever. So we'll see how this drives now. These two anti-roll bar drop links have been replaced at the front. And finally, just torque the wheel bolts. So that is job done. Now, all I need to do is to give the car a test drive to see if that solved the problem. So that's it for another video. My friend Neil, who is the owner of the Audi, has just taken it out for a test drive just to see how that's behaving with its new drop links. In other news, I'll now take you to my Jeep, as there is a repair looming. Now things have been going well with this car. It's been running quite beautifully lately. But I did notice a diesel smell. So come under here with me. Just ahead of the rear axle, on the left, is the fuel tank. And as I'm sure you can probably see there, there's some staining. And this is bad. The fuel tanks on these are literally enormous. And it's held in place, well, just to give you an idea, it starts here, which is roughly level with where, well, it's about here on the front door. And this continues all the way along to the back, almost up to the back axle. That's the Audi coming back. This is like a cradle. It's a shield, protects the fuel tank from anything, but it's actually like a cradle because the fuel tank lives above it, and this kind of cups it and holds it in place. And where the fuel tank meets this panel, muck builds up and corrosion forms. It's very common, and it usually happens at the back of the tank, and that's what's probably happened on this. This situation with the fuel tank is rather ridiculous. I mean, who uses metal for a fuel tank in the year 2000s when this car was made? VW were using plastic in the 80s. It's a crazy substance to use. It's just bound to rust. Now, the problem is that most other cars of a similar age that would be good donor cars, their tanks are equally rusty. So I'm just moving a problem. I could take it out, I could get it lined. People talk about getting them lined, but I don't think I want a rusty tank in there, even if it is lined. So fortunately, I have found one on eBay, and it's actually a new metal tank in another Jeep WK. And the chap's willing to take that out for me and sell it to me for a very good price, and I'm very pleased. So that will be arriving at some point soon, and when it does, I'll be making a video of me replacing that tank, which I don't think is actually that horrendous. I think the most important thing is going to be to make sure there's no fuel in it, because this thing holds a stupid amount of fuel. I put 3/4 of a tank in the other day, and it was about 110 quid. So it's a lot of fuel. I know fuel's gone up lately. So that's going to be coming up soon. And I think the next thing to do to this car is to give it a really good clean, as it seems to be covered in Saharan dust from a recent rainstorm, which I never thought I'd say in Europe, but it is. And it looks awful. It's abrasive, so lots of water, and really good clean. And maybe even the wax, because the weather seems to have set good for the time being. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Do feel free to like and subscribe if you want to see more like it. Thank you very much, and goodbye.